Every journey, like every story, has its own beginning. And this is a story that begins with a journey. A journey through a vast northern land. A land where winter had found a home. To early pioneers in the young country of Canada, it must have seemed that they had traveled to the land where winter was invented. While some felt the hardship of this most unforgiving time of year, to others it became a season to celebrate. The first frost became a sign of hope, a promise of things to come. Summer games with stick and ball changed with the season, and as Mother Nature held the land in her icy grip, brave pioneers were driven by a desire that made great distances small, that made the harshest conditions seem of little consequence. The new country had a new game, a game called hockey. Against the backdrop of a frozen landscape, foes met face to face. Skates and sticks were the tools of these modern gladiators. And from the first time stick met puck, a passion was ignited. A passion that swept an entire nation. In the 19th century, it was known as shinny, a simple game, a stick, a ball, and a sheet of ice, a way to pass the time as winter cloaked the land. Soon, rules were written. Form and structure made sense of the freewheeling fun. This simple pastime grew into a passion, and joyful shouts would break the icy silence as young men battled for victory. It was the fleet of foot and the strong of heart who first took to the ice. And to the fans of this new game, these brave athletes must have seemed both fearless and foolhardy. Through the long northern winter, the game took hold on frozen lakes and rivers, ponds and streams. The flashing skates and clashing sticks became a common sight. Across the country, teams were formed. Battles were fought, victories were celebrated, and heroes were born. The game had found a home. From coast to coast, the word spread. There were games to be played and trophies to be won. Speed skaters and figure skaters took stick in hand. Rugby squads and rowing teams joined in the fun. There were bankers' leagues and women's leagues, city teams and university teams, all battling for their own trophies and championships. The new game of hockey found a fan in Sir Frederick Arthur Stanley, Baron Stanley of Preston, Canada's 6th Governor-General. Lord Stanley felt that the only thing that could match the passion that Canadians felt for their winter game was a true national championship. A silver trophy was purchased in London for the vast sum of 10 guineas, less than $50. One side reads, "The Dominion Challenge Cup," and the other immortalizes the name of its donor, from Stanley of Preston. Little did anyone realize that Lord Stanley's humble offering would become the holy grail to hockey players around the world. The earliest inscription on Lord Stanley's cup reads, Montreal, 1893, in honor of the team representing the Montreal Athletic Association. In its first decade, the AAAs, the Victorias, and the Shamrocks all won the Cup for Montreal, while the Winnipeg Victorias, led by the great Dan Bain, 3 times took the championship west. At the dawn of the 20th century, one-eyed Frank McGee and the Ottawa Silver Seven celebrated a 4-year reign as champions. Their dynasty came to an end when Lester Patrick led the Montreal Wanderers to victory. In 1907, Kenora, Ontario, became the smallest town to claim a Stanley Cup championship. 2 months later, they lost it. Former Silver Seven netminder Percy LeSueur backstopped the Ottawa Senators to victory as teams from the newly formed National Hockey Association began to dominate the game. There was now money to be made in hockey. Professional players with high price tags entered the game, including the great Cyclone Taylor. In the second decade of the new century, the Quebec Bulldogs and the Toronto Blue Shirts joined Ottawa as Stanley Cup champions from the National Hockey Association. The Pacific Coast Hockey Association had franchises in Vancouver, Victoria, New Westminster, Seattle, and Portland. In 1915, the Vancouver Millionaires captured the league's first cup. 2 years later, Frank Foyston and the Seattle Metropolitans defeated the Montreal Canadiens, and the Stanley Cup found its first home south of the border. In 1917, the National Hockey League was born, with 2 teams in Montreal and 1 each in Toronto and Ottawa, led by the league's first president, Frank Calder. Charter members of the NHL, the Ottawa Senators dominated the 20s. With 4 Cup victories, the Senators were hometown heroes in the nation's capital. The Toronto St. Pats were 1922 champions, and 3 years later, the Victoria Cougars became the last team to celebrate victory before the Stanley Cup became the sole domain of the National Hockey League. The Cougars were led by manager Lester Patrick. In 1928, as manager of the New York Rangers, 44-year-old Patrick donned the pads to replace an injured netminder, helping the Rangers capture their first Stanley Cup championship. In the 30s, Howie Morenz, the Stratford Streak, led the Montreal Canadiens to 2 Stanley Cups. In Toronto, the St. Pats were now the Maple Leafs. In 1932, they celebrated their first season in Maple Leaf Gardens and their first Stanley Cup. Lord Stanley's Cup bears the names of all those players who have earned the right to be called champion. Season by season, names have been added. When there was no room left on the original bowl, rings were added to the base of the trophy. The cup continued to change until 1948, when it took the form we see today. The 50s brought an era of superstars and dynasties. Gordie Howe began his assault on the NHL record books as the Detroit Red Wings celebrated 4 Cup victories. In Montreal, the fiery Rocket Richard led the Canadiens to an amazing 5 consecutive Cups from 1956 to 1960. Through the decades, the passion for the Stanley Cup has grown ever stronger. Dynasties were born. Heroes became immortal. New teams, new stars, and new fans. As each generation passes, one trophy stands alone, one trophy coveted by all who take to the ice. For those who play the game, there is but one dream: to have their name join those precious few, etched for all time on Lord Stanley's Cup. Today, the dream that began more than a century ago continues its hold on our imagination. It is a dream both old and new, a dream that has passed from generation to generation. On the ice, this dream takes flight as early mornings and darkened arenas become home to the stars of tomorrow. As each season passes, the dream becomes more real. Young boys become young men, and the game a way of life. Preparation and concentration, practiced rituals, details, the difference between success and failure. A lifetime of lessons are learned and learned again, because today another chapter will be written, another chapter in a drama played around the world, a story of passion, of desire, of the dream to play with the best. Frozen ponds and backyard rinks are distant memories. History will be carved into a sheet of ice. Grit and desire will determine who will write the story. Final whistle sounds, today no longer matters, but the dream will continue. The dream to play in the National Hockey League and to one day raise Lord Stanley's Cup. In the National Hockey League, every player and every team begins the season with a single goal: the Stanley Cup. In 2004, the Eastern Conference champion Tampa Bay Lightning and the Western Conference champion Calgary Flames were the two teams who earned the right to battle for hockey's holy grail. The best-of-7 series began on Tampa ice. Veteran captain Dave Andreychuk provided the leadership for the highly talented Tampa Bay Lightning, a team that boasted a new generation of NHL superstars, including Vincent Lecavalier, skillful center Brad Richards, and regular season scoring champion Martin St. Louis. Through these playoffs, Flames captain Jarome Iginla had shown that he was the heart and soul of the Calgary team. Gritty and determined, the Flames had no lack of character or courage, with a lineup that included veteran players Rhett Warner, Martin Gélina, and Stefan Yell. In the nets, two goaltenders who had proven their worth through the first 3 rounds. For the Lightning, Nikolai Khabibulin. For the Flames, Mika Kiprasov. Behind the benches, 2 of the top young coaches in the game, Daryl Sutter and John Tortorella. The Flames' rugged style promised a physical series. In a hard-hitting contest, Calgary celebrated the first goal of the finals. Jarome Iginla continued his outstanding play when his second effort gave the Flames a 2-goal lead. Goaltender Mika Kiprasov turned in an outstanding performance, and Game 1 was Calgary's. Down 1 game, Vincent Lecavalier was determined to raise his play to another level. In front of the hometown fans, the 6'4" center used his combination of size and skill to power the Tampa attack. Through 2 periods, Calgary withstood a relentless assault. In the third, Brad Richards' hard work paid off as Tampa gained a 2-goal lead. The Lightning showed they could counter the Flames' physical style, and Martin St. Louis added Tampa's final goal as the Lightning recorded a 4-1 victory of their own.
And the series is tied. This is going to be a dandy series for these two.
For Game 3, the scene shifted to Calgary, where a sea of red welcomed the Flames home. The game was a physical battle, with both teams delivering punishing body checks. Jarome Iginla was unstoppable as he set up Chris Simon for the first goal of the game. The speed of Sean Donovan produced a spectacular scoring play. And Jarome Iginla delivered the knockout punch as Calgary regained the series lead.
3-0, Calgary Flames.
On Flames territory, Tampa Bay knew they would have to pay a physical price if they hoped to draw even in the series. The lone goal of the game belonged to Brad Richards, his 7th game winner of the playoffs. A new record. The Flames fell short as Tampa Bay's Nikolai Khabibulin recorded his 5th shutout of the postseason. With the series tied, it was down to a best-of-3 as the teams returned to Tampa for Game 5. Martin Gélina struck first, but scoring sensation Martin St. Louis countered with the equalizer. Jarome Iginla restored Calgary's advantage. Frederic Modin scored Tampa's 2nd and sent the game into overtime. In overtime, Calgary captain Jerome McGinley dominated. He combined with Oleg Saprikin to put the Flames within one victory of Stanley Cup glory.
Saprikin took the rebound in, and you can see the joy.
At home with a chance to win it all, the Calgary Flames look to capture their first Stanley Cup championship since 1989. Backs against the wall, the Lightning fought for survival. Their hard work paid off as a Brad Richards shot from the corner found its way behind Mika Kiprusoff. Gritty Calgary forward Chris Clark tied the game. Brad Richards continued his outstanding playoff run as he restored the Lightning lead. The Flames refused to burn out. Marcus Nielsen tied the game at 2. Overtime was on the horizon. "33 seconds into the second overtime period. Tampa Bay's Martin St. Louis was the hero. His sudden death goal forced a 7th and deciding game. Back in Tampa Bay, the air crackled with electricity as fans for both teams soaked up the Florida sunshine, ready to witness the single game that would decide the winner of Lord Stanley's Cup. The final victory would be the most difficult to achieve.
The Stanley Cup will be won tonight.
In the game of their lives, the Flames and the Lightning put it all on the line. In an epic struggle, Tampa Bay's Ruslan Fedotenko opened the scoring. An inspired Vincent Lecavalier could not be stopped as he eluded the Calgary checkers, feeding a perfect pass to Fedotenko for a 2-goal Tampa lead. As the long battle for Lord Stanley's Cup was drawing to a close, weary warriors continued the fight. The Flames refused to surrender. With a bullet from the point, Craig Conroy narrowed the Lightning lead to a single goal. Through the final minutes, Calgary dominated. Tampa withstood the onslaught, and the Lightning celebrated the ultimate victory. The Stanley Cup, the toughest challenge in all of team sport. Every player who raises this prize holds the hopes and dreams of a lifetime. As a new champion is crowned, another chapter in Lord Stanley's legacy draws to a close. Every name added to the trophy continues a story that began more than a century ago. This is a story that began with a journey, and when summer turns to fall, the journey will begin again. A new chapter in the Stanley Cup Odyssey.